Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Boks Office, sponsored by Investec, leading international bank and wealth managers. Jean de Villiers and Skalkberger are still out on the West Coast. I hear Bush James is also in town, but today I'm joined by Nick Mallett and Gary Gold, his first time on the Boks Office. We're going to look at all things 2025, what's coming up ahead this year for the Springboks, and more importantly, Investec Champions Cup rugby this weekend. Some big games coming up on the Boks Office, which is now open.
It all depends on how motivated you are.
Who?
You.
Nick, I'm always motivated.
You've got to have good questions. See, good questions.
I've got great questions. We've got to get, it's Gary's first time, so we've got to
Make sure
get some stories from Gary.
Shimmy's mate.
So Chimmy's mate. Who's this like?
Pierce.
Oh,
That is
for
book.
fuck's sake, is that just-
I hope you got that on camera.
Hopefully that's on film. Get that on film.
Okay, cool, let's go. Okay, we're back on the Boks Office, and once again, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, everybody. Nick Mallett and Gary Gold for the first time on the Boks Office. Guys, Happy New Year, first of all,
Thanks,
and Merry
Happy New Year.
Christmas.
Compliments.
Stay out of trouble.
Always, always.
Nick, why are you laughing?
Yeah, well, I've been lying down, just shouting at my grandchildren, fetch the bloody TV monitor. Why isn't that a wicket? You know, I've been watching the cricket.
And he's obviously based in Cape Town. Nick, you've
Yeah,
got about
yeah.
3 houses.
No,
Kruger
no.
National Park, Knysna.
Kruger National Park, I rent there. Knysna and here, yeah. But I've been around because 2 kids are out from overseas and grandchildren here. It's been very busy, but I haven't lifted a finger because and I'm seriously damaged. No washing up, no fetching drinks. It's been perfect.
Roger Federer's got a house there, you knew that, eh?
Yeah,
No, at
in
Pizula,
Knysna. Yes,
Knysna.
he has a Pizula, yeah.
I stayed there now, I didn't realize it.
No, he's
I saw the flag there, but nice house there.
well, he's certainly can afford one.
Nick, you know I've never been tempted to buy a house next to yours.
Never. No, I don't like competition. He's much better at everything than me.
Yeah, and Gary, how you been? How's your trip holiday? So you been?
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, pretty chilled. Stayed here in Cape Town. Just went up to Stanford for a while, and had a relaxing time with the family. So it's been good.
Is it? Cool, Gary. Quick one. Obviously, you know, first time on the Boks Office. Your take on last year. We'll just go back a little bit on the Springboks and how they've evolved. What have you seen, obviously, with your experience?
I think 2024 was always going to be a year from Rusty's point of view where he was going to see 24 and probably a little bit more of 25 as well, where I think the Boks were going to use that as a growing year to be able to blood young players. And I think you saw that with the amount of new caps that he gave out and the rotation policies that they had throughout the team. And I think, look, he's got enough interest in the bank to last comfortably another 4 years, and quite rightly so. And so I think that what they're going to do is go for 24 and 25 just to blood youngsters, give them as many caps as possible, and then be able to go to the next World Cup in Australia with a hell of a competitive team that have played, I think, in excess of 20, 30 tests is pretty much the goal per player.
Yeah, Nick, the interest in the bank. I mean, you guys have both coached international rugby. The pressure of coaching international rugby. You know, you've lost test matches, you've won it. How hard is it? Do you feel that axe hanging over you, before every game?
Yeah, I think. Listen, the time I took over the Springboks, there'd been 6. I was the 7th Springbok coach, I think, in 5 years. So the average coaching spell was 9 months. So the axe wasn't hanging over; it was descending pretty rapidly. And so you needed to win a lot to keep in your job, and it was very emotional. You knew that the public would be up in arms if the Springboks lost, and then that would filter through to the guys who were running South African rugby, and you didn't know how strong their personalities were, whether they were strong enough to say, no, we've got a good coach, we're going to stick by him. But when you think about what Rassie's done, I mean, he took over. We were in the NADA of South African rugby. I think we'd won 3 out of 12, if I'm not mistaken. In 2017, was it? I think, and when Rassie took over in 2018, I think he only had a 50% win record that year. But there was a real change, a real feeling that this team could go somewhere. And win a World Cup in 2019, beat the British Lions, win another World Cup. He's busy now blooding youngsters, but he won 10 out of 12, if I'm not mistaken, in this season. This year, and 1 point losses in the 2 that he lost. So a drop goal in the last minute, and had Mani Lubbock kicked the penalty against Argentina, we'd have won 12 out of 12. So he hasn't got interest in the bank. He's just an outstanding coach, and he'll be around. In fact, the worrying thing is what'll happen when he goes. Yeah. That's much more about whether, I don't think he has to worry about sort of Damocles anywhere near him.
And I think that he would look back at 24 and say it was hugely successful under those circumstances.
50 odd caps.
50 odd caps. I mean, I think he would have probably gone into this year saying, I don't mind if we drop a couple more games, in the bigger picture of wanting to blood some youngsters, but they didn't. The culture is so good there. And I was spending some time with Edwil van der Merwe, and he was just raving about, as a young guy, how good he was made to feel when he came into the environment, how quickly up to speed they got him. They've got everything sorted there. They're very, very well organised.
Where does this coaching genius lie, Nick? I mean, we're in a golden period now. Yeah. You guys you've worked with them both at the Stormers. You appointed him, if I'm right, at the Stormers when you're director of rugby.
Exactly.
Where does the genius lie? Where has he innovated the most?
Well, listen, technically, he was way ahead of his time as a rugby player. He was already, studying opponents before coaches were studying opponents. I mean, he was really looking at patterns of play and defensive setups and attacking opportunities and stuff when he was a player. He was a player coach, in inverted commas, when he was with the Cats. Basically, he was involved with the coaching there as well when I think Laurie Mains had the team. And then, going through, he was successful with Free State, took them to won the Currie Cup and came to Western Province, got into the final of Super Rugby, went to Munster, was successful at Munster. He's always been successful. I think initially it was his technical ability that shone through, but now it's his emotional intelligence that I think he's really developed since he's got into his 50s. His ability to understand that every single person is different. You press different buttons with different people, respect all the cultures, be inclusive, but don't force people, we're not all one, we're all different. And his ability to handle a Mapimpi at the same time as a Peter Steph du Toit or Vermeulen is extraordinary. So honesty, straight, absolutely honest with the players, so every guy knows where he sits, what he's got to do to get better. And he always presents stats with the players. When he says to them, the reason you're not playing is the other guy made 18 tackles and you made 14 in this game and you gave 4 penalties away. So, he's absolutely statistically driven but caring at the same time, which is an unusual combination.
Gary, you've worked with another genius, but now is getting quite a lot of criticism in terms of Eddie Jones. I mean, what did you see back then? I mean, you look at Nick, you've said you actually imitated some of his things from the Brumbies. Gary, you've worked with him. What did you see back then?
Look, I think Eddie was very much in the same mould of what Nick has described Rassie to be in those days, in as much as the fact that he was pretty innovative in what he was looking to do, Shim. I mean, he was always trying to stay a step ahead of the game, and I'm actually still pretty good friends with Neil Hatley, and he's actually out at the moment now, and I believe that Eddie's still trying to do that and be very.
He's in Japan, Hatley, yeah, with Eddie,
they're working together in Japan. So, and I think Eddie is trying to get as innovative as possible. But again, as Nick alluded to a little bit earlier as well, there's a time to be innovative, and then there's a time ultimately you have to keep winning. And with England, they stopped winning for a long period of time. And that unfortunately then stunted their growth in terms of the fact that he was then more focused on dealing with the criticism in the media, and he was focused on, and you can get waylaid with a lot of that kind of stuff, and then it stops in your tracks. But he also thought really well about the game. I know Eddie, one of the things that Eddie likes to do is he does cross codes. He loves to go to other sports as well. When we were in the States, he actually came over to the States to spend some time with us at a camp we did with the group in San Diego, and Eddie wanted to learn about that, and then I think he went to a basketball club after that. So he's always thinking of new ideas and innovative ideas in terms of being able to bring that to the game.
Your time in the UK, obviously London Irish, and then you came, let me just get this right, London Irish, and then director of rugby at Bath.
Yeah.
Did well at Bath, but probably didn't end the way you wanted to.
Talk me through that.
Can you talk us through that?
I can. Hold on a second. Let me just have a drink. It's. I suppose every one of us, once we've been in the game for a handful of years, can probably have a story along those lines. It didn't end well. Bit of an unfortunate situation, I mean, You work with guys. I mean, it's probably the reason why you hear so often that when coaches get a position, one of the things they insist on is bringing their own people. I was able to do that at Bath as well, and took a couple of really good guys with me, and unfortunately, took a guy who was
Ambitious.
Ambitious, yeah, he was very ambitious, and that's fine as well, and very
Not
good
really.
coach, very
Not
good
really,
coach.
not really fine as well. You know, I think he went behind your back, spoke to the owner, so it was undermining. It's not pleasant. I mean, I know you can't be critical, but I think that there should be a certain loyalty amongst coaches, that if someone's given you the opportunity to come and coach a team, and he's the head coach or the director of rugby, you respect that until the end of his contract. And when the end of his contract comes, you go to him first. He's the one who gave you the job, not to the owner, to say, I'm definitely the right guy for this job. And I think that's what happened to you, Gary.
Yeah, and I think as well, you know, Nick, in terms of what you're mentioning about the honesty as well, is the other thing is come to me.
Yeah,
You know, have a sit down with me and say, Nick, I don't actually enjoy working with you anymore. This is what I think is wrong. This is what I think is right.
Yeah.
Let's either part ways amicably, and this is what I want to do. I think I
of
can do a
course.
better job than you. And then at least you know where you stand, you know. And I don't see that as stabbing anybody, you know. I see that as mutual disagreement, and that's going to happen. That's definitely going to happen within the world of rugby, and it does often. But it's just the way you go about doing things that wasn't that pleasant.
McDonald and Robertson.
Yeah, McDonald. That was done properly.
Yeah,
that was
done
that was
properly
neat and
between the
tidy.
two of
Yeah.
them.
Had a
And I
decent
think
conversation
that
and
is
said
the
we're
way
not going to agree.
That's
Yeah.
exactly how you should do it.
And that is going to happen, you know. I mean, then you don't hold grudges. You can probably move on, and you know, if you've got an off-the-field relationship, you can probably continue with that. But yeah, it was.
It hurts, yeah.
It hurts, yeah. It hurts, and it's not good. But a lot of people do go through that, but it's not pleasant, as Nick said.
I suppose also, Nick, I mean, you guys are inexperienced. The players pick up on it also.
Yeah.
When they can see there's something
doubt.
happening within the management, or because a lot of coaches want players to be tight, but the management also has to work well together.
Well, the easiest sign of that, which you'll see, is division in messages.
Yeah.
When the players start to see that there's different messages, and if a person does have an agenda, inevitably the agenda is probably because they don't agree with your philosophy, so they will go to players and give different messages, and that's very dangerous. You know, that's dangerous even in a healthy environment. It's critically important that, as a head coach, and I know when Nick was the Boks coach, again, knowing Solly and knowing Heineke and the guys who worked with him, I know one of the things you were insistent on is that everybody was on the same page. Have a disagreement in the boardroom behind scenes, but when you get out into the field, make sure the players get the same message and you're going to buy it. And I don't think the game is so unbelievably difficult that you can't find common ground on a lot of things that you want to do.
Yeah.
I believe with the McDonald and Razor thing, I think Leon wanted to maybe play a lot more, and Razor maybe wanted to play a more test match based game, which is a little bit more dependent on territory. And again, I know that's happened with the Springboks. I think that happened with Franco. I think it's happened with Swayze as well. So, and again, I don't see that as a drama. Well, I haven't read if it's a drama or anything. It's different philosophies, and then that's fine. That's cool.
Yeah, the interesting thing, we had the same conversation with Ben Youngs, because he was the, obviously, association with the England squad when Felix Jones left.
Yeah.
But the guy you bring in next has better be better than the other guy that you just gotten rid of.
Yeah, it's hard.
Otherwise, there's a drop in standard,
Yeah,
and the players then turn around and say, "No, hold on, something's wrong here. We had a bloody good coach that left. The guy that's coming is probably not as good." And sometimes you can see it, and I mean, you could clearly see it in the England defense after Felix Jones left. Not as good, and all of that. So I think in the mix, right?
Yeah, I think what Gary's touched on, a very, very important point, that you can have disagreements amongst yourselves as a coaching group, but you must thrash out those disagreements in meetings prior to getting out in front of the players.
Correct.
And then you've got to buy in. The assistant coach and the forwards coach or the defence coach or the backline coach, they've got to agree that this is the way we're going to play this Saturday, and back that mutual decision. If the head coach is democratic enough, he listens to opinions, but in the end, he's got to take the final decision. And you've got to only get one message to the players. Nothing worse than some guy whispering in the air, no, I wouldn't. If it's on in play, you know, he suddenly
Corridor chat. The corridor chat kills every team.
Yeah.
Talking about innovation, Rassie brought in Tony Brown. I mean, you were Stormers coach when he came in as a player, am I right?
Yeah.
What do you think did you see as a player like that he'd be such a good coach?
I think so, yeah. I think so. I mean, it's often when you see a 10 who can run the show really well, which Tony did do. I mean, again, not the biggest guy in the world. I mean, definitely no Henry Honeyball, although I laughed when Brownie said that he modelled his game on Henry's game. I'm not sure how Brownie thought he was going to do that at 5'10", but anyhow. But a brilliant guy, excellent coach, thinks about the game, obviously cut his teeth brilliantly coming through the ranks in New Zealand, a good time with Otago, and then obviously did some great work in Japan. And now it's hugely accomplished. But yeah, Brownie's also quite innovative. He likes to, he likes to
trick play anyway.
Yeah, a little trick play here and there, but without losing focus on the basics. Ultimately, I think that's the big balance. I mean, getting trick players is almost quite easy. I mean, it's fine to find a trick player, but ultimately, I mean, if you can't recycle the ball properly, your breakdown skills aren't good enough, or you can't pass properly, then the trick play is probably not going to work. So I think there's a very good balance from that point of view with Brownie, because he understands both.
Yeah, he's also a fun guy to have around.
Yeah.
I think that's also adds to the value of someone. Not only is he providing on the field information, apparently his kick attack is absolutely outstanding. Finding space, looking for space, and understanding how to manipulate the back three to get space. But on top of that, he has fun. He enjoys what he does, and that comes across to the players. And Rassie was always like that. Rassie was
he's a joker.
I coached him for 3 years,
it's funny,
and he was if any trouble was happening, it was around him.
And I think Jerry's the same as well. I
is he?
think Jerry enjoys a good time as well,
That's
and
good.
works really hard, and they've got great work ethic as well,
Yeah.
which I think you need to have if you're going to work with Rassie.
But isn't it the life cycle of a team? Rassie came and put the basic fundamentals in there, got the set piece right. Sorry, certain South African way, innovated a bit now. Now comes the trick around selection. You look at, I'll give you, I think 2011.
Yeah.
There's probably several changes that should be made to that Springbok team in terms
of course.
blooding new players. We've got the benefit of hindsight now. How does Rassie get that mix right now?
Well, I think it's going to be an evolution as opposed to a revolution, as you say. He's not throwing out the old and putting in the youth. He's saying you're going to evolve in such a way that the younger player is evidently better than the older player.
Yeah.
And it's going to come a time when you're going to put up your hand and say, listen, I quite understand why you're going to leave me out, because this guy's just playing so well. 36, 37 as a backline player, you're not going to be able to compete with someone of 23, 24. In the same way as a 23, 24-year-old tight head prop can't compete with a 33-year-old tight head prop because of the experience he's managed to get. So it's managing to get that mix right, and for people to be accepting, Willie Leroux to be accepting the fact that he is going to have his place taken, as will a number of these players before we get to 2027. Everyone's saying, I'd love to be there, but we can't have a team of 36 and 35-year-olds.
And I think Rassie and Jacques said that post-2011, Shim, so it's funny that you mentioned that. I think early on in their tenure, just before the 2019 World Cup, I read somewhere or I heard somewhere that Rassie was saying he learned a lot in that 2011, because Rassie was a consultant then.
Yeah,
you're right.
And he learned a lot, and Jacques, and that they learned a lot in terms of that. And again, it may be only one or two players. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but just one or two players where maybe if there were some changes in 2011, although it didn't really end badly because of the players, it ended badly because of other circumstances. But you probably could have blooded one or two players in that 210 leading into 2011.
What's the circumstance?
Who?
Sorry?
Who?
Is it too soon?
Has he
Bryce
ever,
Lawrence, 2011.
has he
Only
ever
11
refed you
years.
again? He's never refed you again.
Only
It's too
12
soon,
years.
eh?
Yeah.
It's too soon.
He's not in the Kruger, let's put it that way. On holiday.
You were there 2011, eh?
Yeah.
Just talk me through that game. I mean, when you saw that playing itself out.
Yeah, it's a funny one, Shim. I mean, we were actually talking to somebody about it yesterday. It's a really interesting dynamic with refs, because a lot of the time the perception is that people want to be critical of a ref when he makes a harsh decision, or he's consistently strong, say at scrum time, or he has zero tolerance for not rolling away in the runway of a breakdown because he wants to see a quick game. But arguably, one of the toughest areas to be able to deal with a ref is when he doesn't make a decision.
No decision.
And there's no decisions being made.
Exactly.
It's a free for all, and going into that game, I unfortunately remember the statistics very well. We did a breakdown of all the referees that we were going to come against in that World Cup, and leading into that game, knowing that we had Bryce, we had all the Super Rugby stats and all the games that Bryce had done, and he averaged about 31, 32 penalties a game, which was high, which was quite high, but that was what his data was. And we had a look at how much of those were on defence and how much were those on attack, what he did at scrum time, etc., etc. And you know, in that game, he gave 11 penalties.
Oh,
He gave 7 against us and
Pocock should have had 11 by himself.
So it was a tough one because, you know, you can get frustrated when he's really tough on us at the breakdown, or he's tough on taking a knee at the scrum, but where it's really difficult is, what do you go in and tell the players when a player's letting everything go at halftime?
Yeah.
You can't tell him to go in and be illegal at the breakdown. You can't do that.
You have to take the referee out of the equation, and I think that was the one big error in that game, was that you didn't go with a drop goal strategy into that game. There was one drop goal kicked in the 78th minute by Lambie.
By Patrick, yeah.
And you had your 10 was the best drop goal kicker in South Africa. You had
It was Morne.
yeah. And you know that in that second half, within their half, 27 minutes in their half, and I think of that 15 minutes in their 22.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys completely dominate. I mean, you just say the ref is not going to give us a penalty, so therefore we take him out of the equation. We kick drops.
Yeah.
We did it in the World Cup in I don't want to keep going.
99.
But hell, it works.
How many drop kicks was it?
Just fine. Just fine. They try to change. England tried to put up their hand and say, we'd like only 1 point for a drop goal after this.
No, but okay, guys. So let's 12 debutants last year, 2024 season. 2025, we've got Italy and Georgia to an opportunity to blood more players. You guys can pick 2 players, obviously uncapped players, that you'd like to see getting capped this year.
Okay, I'll kick off, because I'm sure you might say the same. But I mean,
Yeah, that's.
no, that's always the best. But age before beauty. Yeah. So Ethan Hooker, I think.
That's what I.
No, I'm
Taking
afraid
on, yeah.
he's
Okay.
a
Thanks for
guy.
that.
I just think that at centre, not at the wing. He's playing at the wing because
centre.
he's a centre,
Yeah.
and he's a centre with pace and great physical abilities, offloading, great defensively, and just fits into our style of centres that we have. And I think as a tight head prop, I think Netland Fushi is a guy that they've overlooked, and I think technically he would be right up there with Molherba. I think, you know, maybe Thomas the tank can run around the field with the ball better, but I think that Netling is a proper scrummaging tight head prop who can also tackle and
But I think
carry
that's
as
the
well.
big thing, Nick. Yes, you hit on a really good point there, because Netling is technically really sound, but he's good around the park as well. He's mobile for a tight head. He doesn't it doesn't compromise on his size and his weight and his strength. But gee, he gets around the park. I didn't think of Netling. That was a good one.
And not to take nothing away from Koch, who's been there for 2 World Cups. But I think there's a place for this guy. I really think he must get a chance.
Yeah. Gary, your 2?
Well, seeing as he's taken Ethan Hooker, I think the two.
We all had Hooker. I had Hooker.
Yeah. So I think another centre as well. So I think Ethan would probably be a 13, because of his pace. I think somebody who shouldn't be overlooked is David Creel.
Yeah.
I think David Creel is, he's big, he's tall, he's physical, he passes beautifully, he's got a great kicking game, aerially is excellent, very good temperament. He's also diverse. He can play in a couple of positions, although 12 is his position.
Competitive little guy also.
Competitive, big guy, and I really like him. And then a young and up-and-coming guy who I really, really like is this JC Mars.
Yeah.
I think he's got huge potential, you know. He came on a couple of weeks ago for the Stormers, scored a fantastic try, like absolute Cheslin-esque. And I love those kind of players. It lends to our play, you know, setting big platforms with our big forwards and then unleashing the backs to be able to play. And I really like him. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah. Jeez, you guys have taken all the... look, I thought Suleiman Hartzenberg at the Stormers wing can cover 12, also another backline player. And then I suppose Selimpilo Gumede he's gone off the boil a bit at the balls. Remember how he started off?
He hasn't played much.
You remember? Hanupum's kept him out there. He hasn't played much.
Is he a number 8 or can he play 7 as well?
He can play 7
He
as
can
well.
7 and 8. I think he's a guy that
Big
you
ball
can look
carrier.
at. He's a big ball
Hits
carrier.
Power,
Fast,
tackles
hits hard.
Yeah, he's a great player.
Yeah, I thought those are probably the 2, but I mean...
Chatuka?
But he's also quite injured at the lines. If he was at the lines in the form he showed 2 years ago, he'd be the first guy mentioned
for South Africa?
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah,
He's
both
fantastic.
he and his
I
his brother's playing well now, so either one of them. Has Nohamba been capped yet?
Yes.
No.
Has he not?
No, I don't think he's had a...
I thought Nohamba, but he's another guy also. I mean, Krappies is keeping him on the bench.
Yeah.
for the Lions. But he's a guy, when he's on form,
True.
he's a guy that can turn it.
And
Would you play
Julius?
him at 9?
Yeah, 9. Yeah, definitely. Jurenza.
Yeah.
Still a while, I think. He's
Yeah.
good. I mean, he showed the potential against the Stormers.
Yeah, he's got
But
pace,
he's, I suppose, Gary, you look at a World Cup versatility, but then again, we've got 4 brilliant scrum halves. You look at the front row players, we've got, you mentioned Neertling.
Yeah.
You look at the centres we've got there. So
Second rows as well, we've got massive depth in second rows, but
yeah.
we
Van
often
Heerden,
get a lot of
Schikkeling,
injuries.
Ruben Van Heerden.
Yeah.
And another not so left field, I don't think, like Ruan Vermaak, is a very, very good
Underrated.
lock.
Yeah.
Very underrated.
You've had him
Excellent
there,
work rate for a front lock. Understands the line out well. Just really good. We're very blessed from that point of view.
Hookers. Because now you've got Bongi, Bongi's going to be
Well,
long in
this
the
is
teeth.
this is the next question, now, guys. I'm going to read out 10 players, and you'll tell me if they'll make it or not to the next World Cup. So
Age, give me the age next door to them.
okay, to the next World Cup. Bongi Monambi.
Yeah, I think he'll make it.
Is he 33?
Yeah, 33, yeah.
33,
No, Bongi's
36?
32, I think. 32, 33, yeah. Okay, it's either yes or no.
Okay, Bongi, and he's up against Marks and a few young. Yes,
Okay. Frans Malherbe.
yes.
Gary?
No.
No, okay.
Only just because
This is for the next World Cup, yeah.
so 3 years' time.
Yeah.
36.
Yeah. No, I don't think France will make it.
Vincent Koch.
No.
No.
Well, Stephen Kitshoff's got the neck injury, so he can't really. Eben Etzebeth.
Yeah.
Marco van Staden.
No.
Yeah, I think he'll be ready for the
30.
next World Cup.
I think the young guys who are coming through better than him. I think they might be better than him.
Yeah.
Sia Kolisi. He's playing bloody good rugby at the
He's
moment.
playing great rugby, but
Playing
3 more years. 3 more years at that level. I'd love to have him as a captain at the next World Cup, but it's going to be really tough.
How old is he now? Sia.
She was, I think, 32.
No.
Younger.
Older.
33.
It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight.
Andre Pollard.
He's only 30. He'll be there.
Makazole Mapimpi.
Unfortunately not. Age.
Age and, it's a position where we've got some
plenty of
outstanding players coming through. So I think Makazolo might find it tough. Yeah.
Vili Leroux.
No.
No, I don't think so.
He'll get his 100th this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deserves it.
Absolutely.
What a player he's
no.
been.
Big
No,
time.
absolutely. He might even be a back three consultant. You know what Rassie does? He keeps Vermeulen, keeps Willie to organise the back three because Fassie's still got a bit of learning to do, although he's playing magnificent rugby at the moment. But you've got Damian Willemse and Fassie. I mean, it's hard
He
to
can
keep
play
them.
fullback.
Yeah, very
Cheslin.
hard. Cheslin, hard to keep those guys out of the team. They really are.
Willie's
Box office, those guys.
Willie's very, very good with the youngsters as well.
Yeah.
I mean, again, doesn't nearly get enough credit for that. On the field, like really, really good with the youngsters. I think we saw some pictures, and I know he gets some stick for it, We saw him on the bench at Cardiff that one time, shouting and screaming from the sideline, and people get the wrong impression.
fine, though.
Yeah.
Get the wrong impression of that, but he's
invested.
helping. He's
Invested,
very
yeah.
invested, and I mean, again, it's on record that a lot of youngsters give him credit. Kirtley gives him huge credit. Kanan gives him credit. They love playing with him because he's a general. He calls the shots from the back.
But Gary, where do you, I mean, you've involved in a lot of recruitment. Vili was, I think, Boland, came to the Stormers, didn't want him, went to Griquas, went to Free State, Japan, was at Wasps. Was at the Sharks. I saw a picture of him in the Sharks jersey.
He was with me at the Sharks.
Yeah, at the Sharks. But where does, I mean, he's your classic late, I don't know what you call it, late developer, but I mean, he's getting 100 caps for the Springboks this year.
Yeah, I mean, what's your question?
Where do you miss it though? Like a Vili Leroux comes to training, people have a look at him. You basically you're saying to a young guy, that's going to get 100 caps for the Springboks. That
Yeah, I actually think you've hit the nail on the head a little bit. I mean, I think as age has got on, Vili's just better and better. He's used the experience more. I mean, again, you've seen those clips where they show before the ball comes in when Vili plays at the first receiver, how he actually scans over there and he sees where the wing is, especially with the 50-22 that's now in play. If the wing's too tight to the touchline or to the 5, he kicks it down the middle, or he plays. And again, his decision making with his age has become really, really good. He's just got a lot better, and I just think, from that point of view, I know guys like Cipriani, like him or don't like him, loved playing with him at Wasps because he had a constant coach behind him.
Yeah, but not only does he coach, he's really got a feel. I mean, Villy's extraordinary. His timing of the pass is so good. He's one of the guys who doesn't give it too early, doesn't give it too late. He always gives it at the right time. Holds it, waits until he sees what the defense is doing, and then selects the right guy to pass to, or the little chip or the grubber. I mean, he's a very, very intelligent rugby player. And I think also the guys who've spent 6 years with Rassie are in a golden period. That's why they're getting.
Yeah.
If you don't lose a game, or you're losing very few games, you're winning World Cups, they're not going to throw you out. And that's where a lot of those guys, Villy in particular, has really benefited from a stable coaching environment.
Yeah. Sir Clive Woodward said last week, if the English clubs don't selecting players overseas, we've got the luxury of selecting from all around the world. The English don't do it. You've got experience in the Premiership. He said they will never win a World Cup again if they don't start selecting guys from outside of the country. What do you take? What's your take on that? I mean, England, a guy playing for Toulouse
they've got 12 in France.
Yeah.
12 good players.
For me,
it's time to change.
Big time. For me, Shimi, it's an easy answer, that one. I mean, again, football around the world is doing it. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, I know you guys have spoken about it on this show quite a lot as well. We definitely need a central global season, and we don't want to get into that now. I think the game needs a global season so that all the internationals can be played at the same time, and the Heineken Cup can correlate with Super Rugby, blah, blah, blah. But the most important thing is that I think it's archaic, the fact that there are countries that are not selecting players who are playing overseas. And I know why. The reason is because they're scared that they're going to leave the country. But at the end of the day,
more players come through.
It's not a bad thing.
Capitalist society. It's not a bad thing. They go and get experience. I mean, it was actually a very good thing from our point of view that we allowed our players to go and play overseas. They got great experience, and I think it's a no-brainer.
And younger players got opportunities. If you're 100%. Getting these guys blocking you all the time, then you're going to use younger players. Whereas if the guy at 20, 27, 28 decides to go and make some money overseas in France or Japan, it opens up a spot for a young 22-year-old who starts developing. And I think
there's also a lot of IP that they bring back as well. I mean, if you've got a player playing in France at top 14, Nick's obviously coached there and won the top 14. You've got a player playing there, and is it twice?
Only coached 2 years. So.
No, you didn't. You coached second division as well. Don't forget.
Yeah, well, you
didn't win that.
Do you want me to tell you about my success? We went up. I took both teams up to the first division.
Okay.
I don't want to show.
Stay humble, Nick.
Stay humble.
So Nick, you would have been
no. In this
Nick,
country, it's doctor. No, you're doctor. You become a doctor in this country. Dr. Erasmus.
You get RP. They come back from France. They know the players more intimately than you do as a coach because you're not in the country. Yeah. And they bring back that intel as well. So I think it's critically important.
Yeah. Rugby in America, 2031. Obviously, you guys, that last-minute loss heartbreaking loss against Portugal. But 2000,
draw.
Was it a draw?
It was a draw, yeah.
Do you want to talk about it?
No.
Did they go to the World Cup or did you?
No, America were meant to go to this last World Cup.
Yeah.
What did Los Lobos got through?
Los Lobos.
Yeah. Rugby in America, is the potential, the potential's clearly there. Is the growth there?
No, the growth isn't there yet. Again, it's a very difficult thing for people to understand, but there isn't money in American rugby at the moment. There isn't.
There's money in American sport, though.
There's money in American sport, and
Americans watch.
And
they don't watch rugby.
Correct. And there's two ways to think of it. There's the NFL and the NBA and those sports, which are multi-billion-dollar organizations on their own. Okay, and that's because, as exactly what Nick says, eyes on the sport means TV rights, means that's where the money comes from. And then there's Olympics. Okay, and those are the two watched sports. So if you're an Olympic sport and you fall under the US OPC, which is there's cash there because that's a well-funded organization. So Sevens does have financial backing because it's an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
Where rugby falls in the middle, it falls where soccer fell for many, many years. And even soccer now, Apple have paid a fortune to be able to show the MLS, but the game still isn't. It's not a watched by hundreds of millions of people in the States at the moment. Unfortunately, that's where rugby is. And you know, you're getting 5,000 to 7,000 people at an MLR final. You know, there's not eyes in the game. There's no appetite for the viewership for
Is that for final 5,000 to 7,000?
5 to 7 at this moment.
It was me at Rondebosch, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Paul
Where you would lose. And
No,
you still
never
got
lost,
7.
never lost.
Okay, just checking.
Paul Jim, Paul Risk, what,
Well,
25?
Paul
Jim,
Boys,
yeah.
25,000
Yeah,
people for that game. That's why it's about the culture, whether it's in your culture or not. You know, Australia battle because rugby is the third rugby sport they play behind Aussie rules and rugby league. So it's very, very hard. And America, you're not going to change Americans from their diet of baseball, basketball, and
It's going to be very difficult. The
And
only
hosting a World Cup, there'll be a bit of a bump though.
There was soccer. They saw that, the football, soccer, however you want to describe it. But in '94, after that World Cup, there was a bit of a bump. But as Nick says, it's just going to be a bump. It's never going to be a mainstream sport there. However, there is a plan where World Rugby would invest in the game in the States. And what is possible to do is if you invest at the grassroots and you be able to bring guys, which they're looking at doing now. So the guys, the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, who are not going to, interestingly enough, a lot of guys have this perception that you go and recruit from football, American football. I actually thought in the time that I was there, the sport that you would want to go and look at is basketball.
Yeah.
Because they're big, they're strong, they're athletics. Basketball is actually quite a physical sport, believe it or not. Exactly as Nick
Repeat
says.
effort.
Yeah,
Running up and down. Yeah.
repeat effort. They're really good hands, good hand-to-eye coordination, you know, and they're good athletes. They're fantastic athletes, you know. So that's a sport where you could go and invest in guys who maybe not going to make it in the NBA, and you could look to invest there. And again, you know, you only need a pool of 50 to 70 really, really good players coming through, and then invest in them, be able to give them that central contracting, and then hope you can go to a World Cup, which is what happened with the Uruguay, what happened with the Portugal, it's what happened with smaller nations who've done that.
But Gary, what they did was they put a lot of their players into one club. So suddenly you played Los, whatever they were.
Correct.
And they had 17 players coming from one club.
Yeah.
Portugal had, you know, the majority of their players, except for the ones who were good enough to play in the French league, were from one or two clubs. So there's a real understanding. Whereas you're drawing people, where's the club?
Oh, well, I mean, you're not only drawing from the... another example, for example, in the Major League Rugby competition, there wasn't a 13 who was USA qualified playing in the whole competition. There wasn't 113. There was 110. One fly half.
All South Africans.
Yeah.
No, Irish,
Irish, yeah.
Aussies, 1 or 2. I mean, Gito was playing at the one club. And
make a few.
So if you're an owner of a club, you're not responsible to USA Rugby in any way, shape or form. So if you're an owner and you want to win and you half understand the game, you're going to go and buy a hooker. You're going to go and buy a good 8. You're going to go buy a 9 and a 10. You're going to go buy a good 15, a lock 5. Yeah. So you're going to invest your money into those positions, and then it means there's no depth of those guys playing.
Yeah.
And you have to then start scouring, you know, the rest of the world, and it's difficult.
Tough, yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, a big weekend of Investec Champions Cup. Gary, gee whiz, Stade Francais, Newcastle, Bath, London Irish, Worcester. So you've got the experience in terms of Investec Cup. How do the Bulls also?
Yeah.
And the Stormers.
Your point, Shimmy?
How do we make South African teams more competitive? And Kobe Steelers, sorry, I forgot that.
I think
And Sharks.
all clubs in Tiger.
Four clubs in Tiger. That's more than 14. He's disqualified.
Exactly. That's a lot of clubs. How do we make South Africa? I mean, obviously your closest experience was with the Bulls. How do we make our teams more competitive in the Investec Cup?
So we had this in the UK, interestingly enough, as well, where you got the Premiership week in and week out. 22 weeks of rugby in those days when there were still more teams in the Premiership, and then you still had to play Europe, and in those days they actually used to have a cup competition as well. So there were 3 competitions. We actually have to learn that still in this country. We have to learn how to rotate our squads to be able to definitely play in the URC. And be able to be competitive and want to win, which obviously we've been very successful with. Certainly the Bulls and the Stormers have been successful in that competition, but then also want to take the step up and actually want to be competitive in the Investec Champions Cup. And I think we've still got to learn how that happens. And the way to do it is actually, I think at the beginning of the year, there's going to be a handful of games and I mean this with respect, there's going to be a handful of games that you really do expect your younger guys coming through should be able to handle it. So maybe the Italian teams coming to South Africa, maybe a couple of the Welsh teams coming to South Africa. You know, it's going to be an opportunity for you to get the balance right there of being able to give a couple of guys a bit of a break and then other youngsters to be able to come through, and being able to rotate that and strategically plan your squads accordingly, so that the fact that you can go into the Investec Champions Cup knowing that you're going with full metal jacket and giving it a real go.
But here's the scenario, Nick. I mean, you can come in here. There's a big derby game, URC game, on the following Saturday. The week before, you've got to fly to France or to England. Now, you mentioned the axe hanging over your head.
Yeah.
What do you do then? Because then you can take your big dogs to go play in the Investec Champions Cup, but then you also compromise winning the derby game in the URC.
So
what do you choose?
So I don't think it should be up to the coaches to have to make these decisions. I think that World Rugby's got to sit down and look at the calendar and say, we've got to play the URC and the Premiership and the French, whatever it is, in that window. And that window can be from September, October, November, December, January, maybe into February. You play Six Nations in March, 6 weeks, March, April. You play Investec Cup, April, May. And then you have international window, July. And so everyone, it's a build-up towards the international season. But at the same time, you have a block of Investec Cup games, which the public can understand. There isn't a URC game or a championship game thrown in between. There's just a period of 7 weeks or 6 weeks, because I think you can even reduce it to make it a knockout, like an FA Cup type of competition, where you only have 6 weeks, but then you go in with everyone, and your internationals will want to play, because straight after that is this international season will start. So I think that they should combine the sort of July and November series in a sort of in a July, August, or August, September when we're playing.
Correct. Yeah.
And then there's a logic to it. You can sort of play your youngsters in the URC. You play your internationals for Investec Cup. You play, obviously, internationals go and play the international, but they rest at the beginning of the URC, because that's when you bring your youngsters through again. But at the moment, it's very bitty, and no one really understands it, particularly in this country, we don't.
Yeah. Anton Dupont, in South Africa for the first time in 8 seasons. Sharks Toulouse this weekend.
Yeah.
How did the Sharks beat Toulouse?
Sharks to lose this weekend.
You reckon it's done deal?
Listen.
Toulouse played La Rochelle
Yeah.
this last weekend. It was a team full of youngsters. La Rochelle got through the kick in the last minute, which means there are 25 Frenchmen in Durban waiting for this weekend's game.
Listen, that's the French nationals. I mean, it is an incredibly strong side, that Toulouse team. Unbelievable. When you look at Leinster and Toulouse and La Rochelle and Bordeaux and Toulon and Saracens at their best, I mean, they are really 10, 11 internationals in every single team, and it's really, really, really tough. So the Sharks are going to have to put all their internationals in. It's got to be France against South Africa. But, is Eben going to be right? Is Bongi going to be all right? We already know that there are a couple of injuries. They've had Esterhuizen knocked out. Who else went off? There was another.
Fassi, that's the big one.
Yeah, exactly. Fassi going off.
I think he might be out for a while.
Exactly. So unfortunately, I just think that listen, if the Sharks beat Toulouse, it'll be their best performance, in my view, in the last 5 years, because they will be playing against a team that I think will be in the final of the Investec Cup.
Okay. I'm gonna challenge Nick a little bit on that, in as much as that it is horrendous weather to play rugby in at this time of year.
Yeah, pouring with rain, eh? France love it.
But hot.
No, it's pouring with rain. They floods in Durban. Floods. You got to get a boat to get onto the rugby field.
No, there isn't.
Guys, look there.
No, currently.
Currently, it is pouring down. I mean, seriously, there's a lot of rain. Maybe not by Saturday.
Gary, you're referencing the humidity, right?
I'm talking about the
Yeah.
Are you serious, Nick?
This last weekend, it's been absolutely bucketing down in Durban. Bucketing down. I mean, thunderstorm stuff. So one or the other.
One or the other, but the humidity is suffocating. It's difficult. And I still think that I love the French. I love the French as a nation. I love them as a team. I love watching them play internationally. I still think that, and we saw it last year at the Bulls with Bordeaux, who came out, and I still think that they have a little bit of a problem with travelling as well. And I think this is as good an opportunity that the Sharks are going to have to go for them this weekend. I do think Toulouse are too good, and I think they're a fantastic rugby team, but I think the Sharks will back themselves at home here. Hopefully guys will come out to Kings Park knowing that there's outstanding rugby players coming from France to play. I mean, arguably the best in the world, some of the best in the world, and I think the Sharks could pull something out the bag.
It's the closest we'll come to that. Well, assuming all the Springboks are fit for this. For the Sharks.
And that's a good point.
The quarterfinal, it will be the closest.
We do need.
Just look at the Bulls against Northampton. I mean, the Bulls went in with a full team, really home, but 3 o'clock in the afternoon, boiling hot. Northampton won't live with us. Cheapers. Northampton tackled the whole game. They were up for it like you couldn't believe. They scored 4 tries. Every opportunity they got, they scored. The Bulls probably had double, if not 3 times as many opportunities, and it was the Bulls that fumbled it. So you can't always say that it's the travel or the heat, all that sort of thing. Glasgow Warriors.
We saw that last week.
Unfortunately, the teams.
Want to talk about that final yet, Gary, or not?
No,
too soon.
That's too soon. we talk about France and the travel. These guys will be up for this game against, and I promise you, they really hold this the Investec Cup dear to their hearts.
There's a lot of merit in that. I mean, this is a competition for them that is front and center for them.
You could see how Leinster approach their approach. I mean, you watch all the promotions, the Star. I mean, surely as a player, if you put on that jersey and you've got, I think they've got 4 or 5. Leinster have got 4 or 5. I think it is something. I think it is something worth fighting for and going hard for. I suppose the fact that they rested players back home and they brought the whole French team who won't go to New Zealand. They won't tour for France, but they'll tour for Toulouse.
No, that's why we've got to find a way, Ashim. We've got to find a way that we can put our best team on the field to play these. Because if we had the Stormers with 10 internationals, the Bulls with their 10, and the Sharks with their 10, because, I mean, Rassie's capped 50, so they're all over the place. We've got lots of international. But if we had them all for these games, we'd be in a situation where we could be competitive. But unfortunately, our Springboks are still waiting for the break, their rest from the Northern Hemisphere tour. They were given a week off, a couple of weeks off, and then suddenly it's a vital derby, please play. I mean, it's just tough. I mean, for Sia, for Eben, for every single guy who went on that Northern Hemisphere tour. It's really hard now to motivate yourself and come in now.
Yeah. Another big game, the Stormers at home against the Sale Sharks. Sale a tough bunch.
Big pack of forwards, Kicking Flav, I suppose, in forward as well. He can control a game really well. So, pack of forwards to compete with the Stormers. But there, I think the Stormers have got the ability. I don't think Sale Sharks is in the same, I think they're not, you can't put them in the same conversation as Toulouse or Leinster. Yeah. I don't think so. And but they'll be a hard team to beat for the Stormers. I think South Africa can win that game.
Worrying sign, I suppose, for the Stormers, Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu injured. He's struggling to compete a game. I mean, the effort's there, he's putting his body on the line, but sometimes it just doesn't click your way.
Yeah, and it goes like that. I mean, Jean had it as well, I mean, Jean had 2 ACLs in his career, still got 100 tests, I just,
Bone China.
I think,
Played with Bone China, I'll fracture every bone in his body.
So I think Sacha needs to just realise that obviously, he's now made the step up to the top level of the game, and, your body's going to need to take an adjustment, and but I mean, injuries are part of the game, unfortunately, and he just needs to ride that wave. He
doesn't lack physicality. I mean, for him to try and run over 150 kilogram prop was not the brightest thing to do, and he's a clever guy. Sidestep him. You're a backline player. I know you want to set something up, but I mean, you see Kwagga Smith sidestep big guys. You don't have to show your physicality by trying to run over a guy that's 60 kilograms heavier than you. So he's got to understand where how he must fit in. He's a good defender. He's physical. Throws himself into every contact. But he obviously popped his shoulder and went back in this last weekend. He's had a knee issue. He's had now a hip pointer. I mean, it's happening all the time. So he's got to find a way to get through a game of rugby. 4 matches, I think he hasn't made half time.
Yeah. Look at the Stormers, guys. One of the topical things has been Mani and the kicking. Look, it's how, I mean, I remember him getting a kick from the corner to get the Stormers into a final and kicking them for 2 seasons into 2 finals. Then all of a sudden, probably a little bit of a dip. I don't know. I've never kicked in my life. obviously Sacha's there.
Yeah.
How would you guys look at it? I mean, you guys have been 2 head coaches. Is it just time? Is it a technical thing? Do you?
I feel from that point of view, we have a tendency where you can make too much of it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you saw with Rassie didn't seem to make a big deal of it as well. You saw that one press conference where Sia came out in his defense as well. Obviously, it's a problem. You can't have your 10 missing as many kicks as he is currently at the moment. But as you quite rightly say, he stuck a kick over from the corner to get them into a final that they ended up winning. So I just think that, again, does Dobbo want him in the team for his attacking ability? Most definitely.
General play exception.
Does his general play, does he run the show well? Yes, no question of a doubt. I don't think anybody's questioning his pedigree. And if he is having a little bit of an off day at the moment, do you give the kicking duties to Sacha? Do you maybe find somebody else?
It's like golf, you can drive a driver down the middle, you're second onto the green, suddenly you can't sink a putt like that. Your guy gets the yips. And putting for a professional golfer, if you can't putt, you can't win a competition. I mean, just having 26 putts as opposed to 28, that's 8 over a week, over 4 days. So he's got to the stage where he was an 75% kicker, and he's probably down now to a 60% kicker, maybe less. And so then you've got to say to yourself, okay, is this affecting his game? Not really. He can still run a game well, although I feel he could probably kick a bit more as a 10 than he is at the moment, because just in terms of controlling the game, the Stormers kick very little. But kicking for poles per se is completely different. It's like a separate skill set. Yeah. And I don't think it's affected the way he personally plays rugby. But it's definitely someone you need an 80% goal kicker internationally. And it's all very well, Rassie saying, we'll put Fafkin kick from the left or from the one side and Cheslin from the other side. But actually, we were very happy that Pollard kicked 13 out of 13 to win us the World Cup.
Yeah, but it takes over. I mean, Monty went, we saw it with Monty, and eventually, he went, 2007 World Cup and slotted everything. It does, if it's a technical thing, it does take over. I think mentally, he's not shying away from it. He'll have a go from anywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's up to, the people who are teaching him and working with him. And also his work ethic. I know that when Percy went over to played for the Dragons, he realized in those conditions, if he was a top goal kicker, he was going to be, people would want to sign him up. Yeah, and so he practiced. And you go to all of them, they put in hours and hours of work,
Yeah.
Okay, Bulls, Gary, against Castres. 8 in the top 14. Away from home.
France. Away from home in France. Again, the travel factor that I think everybody's making a big deal of. I'm not sure it's such a big deal, but again, we were moaning like crazy when we were playing Super Rugby and saying, we've got to travel to New Zealand and spend 5 weeks in Australia and New Zealand. Now you're flying, no time zone issues, so it's not really. I think it's something that we can deal with. Castres also not having a brilliant season as well. The Bulls are a little bit inconsistent at the moment. Had a couple of weeks off. It's going to be tough for them. I think it's going to be tough there.
For the Bulls?
It's going to be tough for the Bulls, but if you're asking me for a prediction, I think they might pull this one out the bag.
The Bulls will?
Yeah.
Power pack? The pack always dominates.
Yeah, power pack. Again, I think they'll relook at things. And you always do when you lose a couple of games that you feel you should have won, which I think they will feel against Northampton. As Nick said earlier, I mean, they did all the playing and didn't win the game. And then again, against the Sharks as well, I feel they'll be very disappointed in that result. And I think they've had a couple of weeks off now, and knowing the guys as I do, I mean, very diligent bunch of players, and I think they'll all go back to the drawing board, them and the coaches, and I think they're going to put in a big performance at Castres.
Looking at it from the other side, looking from the French point of view, they hate losing at home games. They don't mind losing away from home, but they hate losing at home. So the size of the pack can be counterbalanced by the crowd effect on the referee, just because the crowd is loud there. The French always feel they're the 16th man, and it's a tough ask. Weather's horrible. It really is horrible in Europe at the moment. So you're going from 40 degrees in Pretoria to 0, and it's all a question of how motivated are they? How motivated are the Bulls to take this further? It's got to be in your head that this is a target for us. We want to. Sharks have got 5 points. They just have to win this and they're qualified. The Bulls are on 0 points, so they've got to win the next 2 And this is a hard game to win away from home. I mean, they can, but it's because they've got the quality, but it's temperamentally, have they gone there with an attitude, we're desperate to get into the top 16, because then you've got another flight over, you've got to go and play La Rochelle away if you come fourth, whatever it is.
It almost delays the inevitable.
Yeah,
You're gonna get there a week later.
Exactly.
And you come back hurt.
Exactly. That's why in this competition you've got to finish first. You've got to try and finish first, so that you can at least get a home when you get the 32 is just home and away.
Yeah.
Then you get a home last 16th. I'm not sure how it goes from there because we haven't gone further than that.
And it's also interesting to know what team they're going to pick as well, because last year the Bulls chose to take not a second team, but a certainly weakened team to Northampton because of the fixture the following week. And again, if they do that, then it's going to be very, very difficult for them in Castres.
Guys, looking ahead this year, there's two big events, the British and Irish Lions Series and the Six Nations come up. I want to ask you one more also, but okay, predictions, who's going to win the Six Nations?
Where's France playing Ireland? Home or away?
I'm not sure, actually.
Because
is that the decider? England? England.
No, I think England third. I think it's those two teams. I personally think over the last year they've been the best two. Maybe Ireland just falling off the edge a bit. Maybe. But France, I think France. If France have got Ireland at home, France have got 3 out of the 5. I'd go for France as Six Nations
winners. Kerry?
I agree with that. They've got
even if Ireland are playing France in Ireland as a decider.
Yeah, I still think so. They got Wales first up as well. France have got Wales first up in their first fixture at home.
Yeah.
So I think they'll get off to a pretty good start. And I agree with Nick. I think France is starting to build nicely.
You understand the English media. Does Borthwick have enough runway to not have a good Six Nations?
Again, there's two schools of thought out there. Do you give him the chance until the next World Cup? The hierarchy certainly are under a lot of pressure there with Sweeney and the other guys. And the perception is that, maybe a lot of the problem lies with them and not so much with the coaching staff. Again, who do you bring in? I'm not sure if Rob Baxter wants that job. I'm not sure if Lancaster wants to go back and do that job. Who do you bring in for the England job? Because you're starting all over again.
Michael Cheika's in the UK.
Yeah.
He's going well. He's going nicely with Leicester.
Pollard can't play for England.
I think the Six Nations is going to be very interesting for England. They're going to have to throw some proper punches.
Scotland, Ireland are better than they've ever been. So they also
Scotland. You forget about Scotland.
Scotland's proper. So there's no easy game anymore. It's tough. It's really going to be tough. Going to the
Australia.
Australia. Well, I mean, I would say that it would be 3-0 to the British and Irish Lions if it wasn't for Joe Schmidt. I think Joe Schmidt has had a big effect on them, given them a bit of confidence on this Northern Hemisphere tour. But I'll still go 2-1 British Lions.
So Lions to win the last one, the decider.
Might be maybe they win the first.
It won't be done. It won't be 2-0 and then they celebrate for a week and then the Aussies come back.
Like 2009 when they did that. Yeah, I think it'll be 2-1 as well. I do think it'll go down to the decider. Yeah, I think Nick's spot on. I think Joe Schmidt will have his preparation spot on. He'll understand the enormity of the first test. Will be massive for them to be able to try and get a win under the belt. And I think they'll take confidence from their Northern Hemisphere tour now in November. I think they played some good rugby, and I think they'll come away with a lot of confidence. And there's some really good players coming through that Aussie team.
It's the pack, though.
Yep, front row.
It's the front row. It's the pack for me that needs.
A good ball carry. Valentini carries well. They've got some good loose.
Joshman's done a fantastic job.
Brilliant job.
Yes, and he's got them much more direct than they used to be, and they became a side that was playing touch rugby. Instead now he's got his forwards carrying it up. He's got his back line, being direct. And I mean, the way he handled a yellow card was unbelievable. I watched one game with 10 minutes. I mean, I think they scored 2 times.
Wales,
yeah.
It was a red. It was yellow or red?
I can't remember. It
was a red, I think.
But anyway,
I can't remember.
I mean, they looked better with 14 men than they did with 15. So he's got them to understand, that you've got to stick to the basics first before you start getting too intricate.
Next one, there's a big game at Eden Park, Springboks against All Blacks, towards the end of the season.
That'll be historical if we manage to knock them over there.
Can we do it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely we can. Absolutely we can. But it's also going to be a very important year for a lot of those guys. You read out names there.
Yeah.
It's a big year for them, because I think they'll get the opportunity to play there, and then suddenly, if we don't win, then it's going to be, next year is going to be the youngsters coming through. If we win, they'll be able to carry on for another year. So it's going to be a really interesting year for us.
But you guys have had, you 2009, you guys won in New Zealand twice, am I right?
Yes.
3 times?
Twice.
Only twice.
Well, 2008 we won down in Dunedin, and then twice in 2009.
Celebration afterwards, how good was it?
It was quiet.
It was quite good.
Quiet night in the harbour, in the Auckland harbour. Yeah.
Is it?
Lasted quite long. No,
Nick
actually
and
it was in Hamilton.
Yeah.
It was actually in Hamilton after we won the Tri-Nations.
Jeez.
98, Nick? That was 98, eh?
98,
Yeah, 98,
I think I walked out with Gary Teichmann. I walked out of the bar, which closed for us at about 5 a.m. in the morning, I think it was 6 a.m. And I walked into the hotel and was congratulated by the doorman there. He said, "Well done, thoroughly well deserved." I thought that was class.
Yeah.
I was still standing, though.
Is it? And Gary?
No, standing. I know, Gary stands. Gary can stand. Probably a lot better than I can. Yeah.
Nick, yeah?
Back in the days of Prison Break, so Dickie and I went to bed early to watch Prison Break.
Yeah, I can. Once you mention Dick
I
Beer's
believe
name,
that.
you've lost it.
So we had a quiet one, yeah.
Gary, thank you very much. Eh?
Thanks very much.
Thanks for joining us on
guys,
the Boks
thank you,
Office.
Nick.
Cheers, lekker,
Thank
man.
you.
Nick, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you soon, and good luck with your rehab and
Yeah,
everything.
coming off in a week. I can't wait.
Gary, so you've coached everywhere in South Africa, Japan. What's your next coaching?
21 clubs.
America?
21 clubs and counting.
Springboks.
No, we're looking at things differently now.
Thank you very much. Well, that's all we have for this week's episode of the Boks Office. We'll be previewing everything or reviewing everything next week with Skalk and Jean when they're back from their month-long holiday. All about Investec Champions Cup Rugby. It's been a fantastic episode. Thanks to Nick and Gary for joining us on the Boks Office, which is now closed.